Qin Yue looked at Zhaozhe, who was petrified not far away, and felt secretly delighted. She strolled over with a graceful posture, brushed aside the strands of hair near her ears, and smiled. "Zhe, long time no see." Zhaozhe, coming back to his senses, stuttered in response, long time no see. "What are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be in Beijing?" Qin Yue candidly explained her situation. "I got divorced." Zhaozhe exclaimed, Qui n'y-y-y-z, What's with the surprise? If it's unbearable, just get a divorce. No big deal. Zhaozhe blinked, dryly asking, "So, are you staying here from now on?" Qin Yue smiled, lifting two small dimples at the corners of her mouth. "Not leaving. My parents are getting old, so I'm coming back to take over their small business." Zhaozhe breathed a sigh of relief, wanting to laugh, but his mouth twitched a couple of times, quickly returning to the awkward expression he had before. Qin Yue didn't miss any of his reactions, observing his tense demeanor. She felt both satisfied and proud. Satisfied with how she handled herself gracefully in front of her ex-lover. Proud that Zhaozhe hadn't moved on, and with just a casual remark, she could stir up waves in his heart. Zhaozhe stood there, silent and unmoving. Qin Yue cleared her throat and asked, "How have you been these past few years?" Zhaozhe forced a smile. "Not bad." Qin Yue tilted her chin slyly turning her eyes to Zhaozhe's face. In the past, Zhaozhe loved to see her mischievous look. The atmosphere was getting just right, and she was about to invite Zhaozhe for dinner when his phone suddenly rang. The volume was loud, startling Zhaozhe. Qin Yue found his reaction amusing, but the next moment, she heard Zhaozhe speaking into the phone, "I just left the company. Wait for me at the subway entrance to go home together." "What? You're coming to pick me up?" Zhaozhe hung up the phone and looked around. Following his gaze, Qin Yue saw a plain-dressed girl across the street waving towards them. Qin Yue lost her mood to show off in front of her ex-lover instantly. She smoothed her long hair, straightened her neck, like a proud peacock, and earnestly asked, "Is she your wife?" Zhaozhe clenched his fist near his mouth, coughed lightly, and said, "Not my wife, my girlfriend." Qin Yue stared at the girl approaching, feeling a chilly sensation in her heart. "When are you getting married? Don't forget to invite me for a drink at the wedding." Zhaozhe shook his head, "Not anytime soon, let's talk about it later." While they were talking, Zhaozhe's girlfriend had already come closer. Qin Yue discreetly sized her up, feeling even more displeased. That appearance, that figure, that dressing. Qin Yue thought it was unacceptable for this girl to be on par with Zhaozhe's love interests. Speaking of which, Zhaozhe hadn't changed much. His face still had those strong lines, and his posture was as upright as a young poplar tree. How could he be attracted to a practical-looking girl? They didn't match at all. Was it for money? But that girl looked quite shabby. The military jacket she wore was definitely fake, and even the embroidered logo was frayed. The girl gave Qin Yue a cold look and then, holding Zhaozhe's arm like proclaiming sovereignty, tilted her head and asked, "Is this your colleague? Why not introduce us?" Zhaozhe, frozen in place, tried to break free from her grip, but as soon as he opened some distance, he was entangled again. He stopped avoiding and said helplessly, "Not a colleague, just a friend." The girl laughed, gripping Zhaozhe's arm firmly. Her thick arm looked incredibly strong, and the other hand swung nonchalantly. "Hi. Im Liqiu, Zhaozhe Girofrien. We're going for dinner, join us?" Qin Yue looked at Zhaozhe sympathetically and then, with a meaningful tone, said, "I won't disturb you. I have something to do." Zhaozhe said a somewhat awkward goodbye and was dragged away by Li Qiu. Qin Yue stood still, and as expected, when Zhaozhe reached the street corner, he turned back to look at her. That look conveyed a lot of information. Qin Yue discerned the embarrassment of being exposed in an awkward situation in front of an old lover, and the unwillingness to accept the current situation. Qin Yue and Zhaozhe's meeting was no coincidence, she intentionally waited for him here. Her goal was clear, to rekindle the old flame with Zhaozhe. If there was anything she regretted in these past years, it was abandoning Zhaozhe, who had been wholeheartedly devoted to her, 2 years ago to marry that foolish second-generation rich guy in Beijing. Back then, she was too naive, spoiled by Zhaozhe, thinking everyone would treat her like he did, pampering her like a goddess. When Zhaozhe played the role of her licking dog, she felt triumphant. But when the dog became her boyfriend, she felt wronged. After all, Zhaozhe didn't have much money, and even buying her a bag required frugality. With her good looks and a decent family background, Why should she endure setbacks with Zhaozhe? So, her heart was never at peace. Teasing Zhaozhe while keeping an eye on her surroundings, she finally seized the opportunity and hooked a major client in the company. The client was a wealthy second generation, generous in spending, and seeing her, he was utterly impressed, showering her with money. She was blinded by the riches and, ignoring Zhaozhe's tearful pleas, went to Beijing. After obtaining the certificate and getting married, she realized the rich second generation was just a facade, boasting on the surface but empty inside. He swiped the credit card of his in-laws, had no significant assets under his name, and started messing around within a year. Her in-laws were even more speechless. They treated her like a thief, looking down on her background. She always thought her family conditions were pretty good, managing 2 storefronts, but in her in-laws' eyes, it was a small and humble family. Unable to endure this needle-swallowing life, she decided to cut her losses in time, divorcing through the legal process. After this stormy experience, Qin Yue finally understood Zhaozhe's goodness. In front of her, Zhaozhe was always at her beck and call. Even after her brief marriage disappointment, she faced Zhaozhe with confidence. Reality also confirmed that her confidence was not unfounded. Their awkward reunion spoke volumes. If Zhaozhe hated her or had let her go, his reaction wouldn't be like that. If it weren't for the sudden appearance of the plain-looking Li Qiu, they should be sharing their feelings in a quiet restaurant now. Thinking of Li Qiu, Qin Yue's brows furrowed and then relaxed. The ordinary appearance of that woman, combined with Zhaozhe's unwavering thoughts about her, seemed to interpret the concept of cannon fodder. The next day at noon, Zhaozhe saw Qin Yue again at the company entrance. Qin Yue suggested having lunch with Zhaozhe. Zhaozhe hesitated, saying he wasn't hungry at one moment and had something to do in the afternoon at another. Qin Yue was a bit angry, asking with red eyes, "Why, do you hate me that much?" Zhaozhe clenched and then released his fist, sighing helplessly. The two went to a secluded restaurant. Qin Yue ordered Zhaozhe's favorite shredded pork with garlic sauce, while Zhaozhe flipped through the menu several times and ordered Qin Yue's favorite boiled fish. They looked at each other in silence for a long time. Qin Yue finally asked, "When are you planning to get married? Your girlfriend seems good to you." Zhaozhe lowered his head, "Haven't thought about it yet." Qin Yue sniffled, "In the past, it was my fault. I thought I had a chance to make it up to you." The timely playing of the song, Later, filled the restaurant. Qin Yue hummed along with the melody, and suddenly, Zhaozhe stood up, went to the bar, and brought back a bottle of beer. He chugged down most of it, and when he raised his head, his eyes were red. They didn't say anything more. Their eyes met, and the tension increased to the extreme. First, their gazes stuck together, then their hands, and finally, their lips. When the shredded pork with garlic sauce and boiled fish arrived at the table, the two of them had already rushed to a hotel, leaving behind a room full of ambiguous atmosphere. That afternoon, Qin Yue and Zhaozhe shared an intimate moment. In the heat of the moment, Qin Yue, embracing Zhaozhe's neck, pleaded softly, "She's not worthy of you. Can't we go back to how we used to be? Marry me." Zhaozhe paused, "Li Qiu, she was with me when I was at my lowest." Qin Yue replied, "But you don't like her. Keeping her around is just stringing her along." This statement perfectly exposed the truth, turning the heartless man's intentions into a pitiful act. To ease the prolonged pain of his self-imposed restraint, Zhaozhe decided to end things abruptly with Li Qiu. "I'll break up with her," Zhaozhe mumbled with his head buried in the nape of Qin Yue's neck. 2 days later, Qin Yue received a call from an unknown number. It was Li Qiu, wanting to meet and talk with Qin Yue. Qin Yue intentionally arranged the meeting in a bustling area, nervously going to the appointment. She thought Zhaozhe had already initiated the breakup, and she expected Li Qiu to meet her in a fit of madness, perhaps hurling insults and humiliation her way. However, Li Qiu remained emotionally stable. Seeing Qin Yue, she calmly said, "Zhaozhe and I broke up." Qin Yue fell silent. Li Qiu turned around, took out a voice recorder from her backpack, and placed it on the table, saying, "If he still has feelings for me, you won't be able to take him away. So, I don't really hate you. But don't be too smug. I came to disgust you today." After saying that, she pressed the switch, and after a sizzling sound, Zhaozhe's deep voice came through, "I know I've let you down, but I can't help it. I still love her." Following that was Li Qiu's voice, "Forget it. I don't believe it. She betrayed you and got divorced. With your personality, you can't accept these things easily. I think you don't love her, you love her beauty and better family background. Zhao responded, if you think so, fine. Who wouldn't like someone beautiful with a good background? Aren't you the same? Li Qiu concluded, fine. If you say that, then I don't have anything to insist on. I genuinely am not attractive, and my background isn't good. I wish you well. After listening to the recording, Qin Yue felt a storm of emotions but maintained a calm and warm expression. Looking at Li Qiu's gloating expression, she scoffed, I thought there was some big secret, is this it? Haha. I believe balanced emotions make for a stronger relationship. Being good-looking and having a good family background are not shortcomings. It's normal for Zhao to like me. Thank you for coming over to remind me. With that, she stood up and left. After walking 2 blocks, making sure Li Qiu couldn't catch up, she angrily cursed at the empty air. Between men and women, tacitly meeting each other's needs is one thing, being exposed by others is another. It's like waking up from a dream, facing the reality one must deal with. She should have realized long ago that someone as traditional and conservative as Zhao couldn't possibly overlook her betrayal and divorce. Why is he enduring humiliation now? Is it really because he loves her? Loving her beauty and family background sounds satisfying, but it also brings a sense of insecurity. Beauty fades, and the family's financial situation may decline. When that time comes, how will Zhao retaliate? On the 3rd day of Qin Yue and Zhao's reunion, they secretly went on blind dates. Their parents were unaware of the reunion, and the blind date candidates were chosen with their parents' help. She wanted to give it another try, to see if she could find someone better and more suitable. If she did, she would pursue a more secure life. If not, she would accept her fate and let Zhao handle things, dealing with the future later. However, after meeting one person after another, she couldn't find anyone satisfactory. None of the men could provide the stability she desired. Every man she met during the blind dates was similar to Zhao, attracted to her looks and family background. Otherwise, why would they pursue her despite her divorce? Yet, none of these men compared to Zhao. At least she understands Zhao, at least they have an emotional foundation, at least Zhao is willing to provide emotional support, and at least Zhao is handsome and impressive. Qin Yue met a few more people sporadically, exhausting her parents' resources, and ultimately decided to give up. Well, she thought, let's just stay with Zhao. After making this decision, Qin Yue planned to start acting cute again. That evening, she secretly went to wait for Zhao outside his company after work. Exactly at 5 o'clock, Zhao walked out of the elevator. She was about to float over to give him a surprise when she saw Zhao walking straight towards the bus stop in front of the company, apologizing to a girl in a knitted dress, sorry for keeping you waiting. In disbelief, Qin Yue followed Zhao and the girl until they entered a nearby coffee shop, confirming that they were on a blind date. In that moment, she felt as if she had been struck by lightning, and numerous thoughts rushed into her mind. After sorting through them, she only caught one key point. While she was busy going on blind dates, Zhao was not idle. They were so tacit that they pursued love and blind dates simultaneously, treating each other as backups. Realizing this, she felt too embarrassed to be angry because all the anger and curses would bounce back. After making this decision, Qin Yue planned to start acting cute again. That evening, she secretly went to wait for Zhao outside his company after work. Exactly at 5 o'clock, Zhao walked out of the elevator. She was about to float over to give him a surprise when she saw Zhao walking straight towards the bus stop in front of the company, apologizing to a girl in a knitted dress, sorry for keeping you waiting. In disbelief, Qin Yue followed Zhao and the girl until they entered a nearby coffee shop, confirming that they were on a blind date. In that moment, she felt as if she had been struck by lightning, and numerous thoughts rushed into her mind. After sorting through them, she only caught one key point. While she was busy going on blind dates, Zhao was not idle. They were so tacit that they pursued love and blind dates simultaneously, treating each other as backups. Realizing this, she felt too embarrassed to be angry because all the anger and curses would bounce back. Facing each other, she could strive for an advantage in wit and charm, but back to back, she couldn't set herself on fire while preventing Zhao from lighting a lamp. What a damn coincidence! Qin Yue didn't want to go on blind dates anymore, it was getting disgusting. But evidently, Zhao was still trying, not yet accepting her as the ultimate choice. Qin Yue decided to wait, embracing change with a constant strategy, waiting for Zhao to make a move. Of course, she wasn't doing this because she loved Zhao deeply. She was just waiting casually, after all, she had nothing better to do. After about a month, Zhaozhe seemed to have stopped going out much, except for work. Qin Yue speculated that, like her, Zhaozhe was going downhill in the blind date journey. Surprisingly, the person used as a backup turned out to be the best choice. After realizing the truth, he might be ready to compromise. A few days later, Zhaozhe's proposal confirmed Qin Yue's speculation. The two of them were truly settling down. Qin Yue felt it was not bad. There was a sense of fate in this constant circling. People often don't cherish the easily obtained bread, but if someone searches for a cake for a long time and ends up with a plain bun, they will treasure the sweetness of the bread more than anyone. Qin Yue thought that her life was not a loss. Having been a young lady, divorced, and finally marrying a handsome guy, that's how she would live. The two began preparing for the wedding, booking a hotel, arranging for the ceremony, and even taking wedding photos. While planning their honeymoon, Zhaozhe suddenly suggested that Qin Yue's father contact some comrades in the manufacturing industry. He wanted them to place orders for components through him in the future. This proposal was ruthlessly rejected by Qin Yue's father. The wedding preparations continued, and one day, Zhaozhe proposed that after marriage, he wanted to start a business. Qin Yue asked, "Start a business? What do you plan to do? Do you have the capital?" Zhaozhe smirked, "I want to venture into the components business. It's our venture. As for the money, we'll figure it out together." Qin Yue's alarm bells rang loudly. "Do you want me to invest money in your business?" Zhaozhe said, "We're getting married. What's yours is mine, right?" Qin Yue was stunned, took a cold breath, and asked, "Zhaozhe, can I ask you something? Why don't you approach my dad for connections after we get married? Why don't you ask for money after we get married?" Zhaozhe laughed without answering, and Qin Yue understood everything. Bringing up these matters during the wedding preparation stage was most appropriate. It could test Qin's family's attitude, envision their future, make Qin Yue hesitate, forcing her to compromise because it's difficult to back down from a commitment. It also allowed Zhaozhe an easy exit in case his plans fell through, preventing him from having a failed marriage. Qin Yue was very angry. She was used to calculating others and couldn't stand being calculated herself. Zhaozhe going on blind dates didn't bother her much, but him eyeing her family's money was stepping into her red zone. Who would want to share property with someone who was clearly interested in their looks and family background? After discussing with her parents, Qin Yue decided to break up with Zhaozhe. Although they had booked a hotel, arranged for the ceremony, and even taken wedding photos, none of that mattered. Thinking of the betrayal she had faced in the past, Zhaozhe finally got angry. Unable to endure it any longer, he exposed his true colors, angrily pointing at Qin Yue and cursing, "You, a divorced woman of your age, can you find someone better after leaving me? Stop dreaming." Qin Yue retorted with hands on her hips, "Without you, I'm still a wealthy single woman, even if I'm doing poorly. As for you, without me, you can only find a woman like Li Qiu. How miserable can you be compared to anyone? I really regret going to see you that evening." Zhaozhe laughed wildly, "I regret even more. What sin did I commit to be eaten and spat out by such a realistic, materialistic, greedy, and artificial woman like you, repeatedly entangled?" Qin Yue replied, "I thank you for giving me such a high evaluation. We're evenly matched. You're not bad either." Zhaozhe twitched his mouth, speechless, and left angrily. Qin Yue looked at his tall and straight back like a small poplar tree, reluctant for half a minute. Then, she felt empty, as if there was nothing in the world that could fill her. She knew that she would never encounter true love again in her lifetime, perhaps she had never encountered it before.